Hello, and welcome to Revamped, a rewatch podcast that revisits my top favorite shows and movies. I'm your host, Brandon Alexander, joined by my co-host,
Courtney Autumn.
Venture with us as we set our sights on the infamous Hellmouth to cover 90s cult classic, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Follow along from the beginning, spoiler-free, as Courtney views the show for the first time and I revisit the series for new takes and a fresh perspective on its narrative.
Each season, every episode, in order, we will follow Buffy Summers and her friends to examine their character development, the show's underlying themes, along with its major story arcs, all while engaging in conversations, sharing our own authentic thoughts and feelings to what's unfolding before us.
So sharpen your stakes, load your crossbows, and join us as we explore the supernatural world of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Let's get into the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Revamped. We are here today to discuss my favorite episode this season. JK, not really, but it is up there in my top ones. Season 1, Episode 11, Out of Mind, Out of Sight. They got that cool twist on the phrase because it's usually out of sight, out of mind, which refers to someone leaving and being forgotten. But this time it's because someone was so forgotten that they left, aka everyone ever that we've known that we didn't like. That'd be cool if we had recorded this as a video upload for Spotify and I put a little edit in there and you just faded away and you still talk through the whole episode and you're just invisible the whole time.
I was going to say it'd be funny if I actually put a second microphone into my laptop and unplug this one, but just have it sitting here like it's plugged in and be on the floor out of view, talking into it. So it's like I'm here, but I'm not.
I thought you were about to say that you were going to have a second one plugged up and you'd be like, I've got Marcy here with us for an interview.
That would have been even better. Just have it hanging here on its own boom arm.
Literally. Get Meredith
have
to come in
random
with some
chair.
fishing line and float a cup over and sip it.
Just hang a sheet.
The red cloth.
Or what was it? She had over her at the end. She was wrapped in some sort of curtain to have the curtain
cloth
just hanging here.
Our
guest for the day.
This episode aired on May 19th, 1997, the day my sister Sarah was born. I was 7 years old then. That is freaking wild. This episode is written by Joss Whedon, and it was directed by Reza Bradiyi. It's Bradiyi. Reza Bradiyi. We'll go with that. This is the episode of Buffy where an unseen menace starts targeting select students of Sunnydale High. Buffy and the gang investigate its origin and quickly realize an invisible girl is behind the attacks. Fueled by her vengeance, she seeks revenge on Cordelia Chase by attacking those closest to her, with plans to leave Cordelia as the big finish. We have a special guest appearance by Clea Duvall playing Marcy this episode. I love Clea Duvall. She is in, for me, most known roles. She's in The Faculty. She plays the grungy girl that gets teased for supposedly being a les. She is in Girl Interrupted. She plays the girl that's in the room with Winona Ryder's character. I can't remember her name right now. She's the compulsive liar girl. I'm reading the book Girl Interrupted right now. I should know her name because she's in it, but either way, she's in She's All That. She's the girl that gets her face painted by Lainey Boggs in the bathroom. And she also comes up with another character that's on Buffy in the future. And she tells Lainey, we think that it would be a good idea if you commit suicide. Fucked up. And then she's in American Horror Story Asylum. She plays the actual lesbian lover of Sarah Paulson's character that signs the documents for her to get sent to the asylum. I really like Clea Duvall in most of the stuff that she's been in. And I've also seen her in some other things, but those are just the most notable. She seems to be tied into roles often where she plays a troubled girl or someone with a darker, mysterious quality. And this episode's appearance, honestly, was the setting off, I think, for most of the stuff that pretty much followed after this, because all those other movies and things came out in the consecutive years to follow. She was a late 90s kind of heartthrob, I guess, for probably lesbians.
Well, it's interesting because whenever she came up, I was like, holy shit, she looks so familiar, but I could not place her. And then as soon as you kept saying all those things, I was like, oh shit. Because as you would just say the movie and I already knew who her character was, but I just could not when I saw her face, it was I know that she's been in probably at least 2 or 3 classic 90s movies, but I just can't think of them. So I'm appreciative of that information.
Yeah, I think the only comment on the people I care about, I did for Principal Snyder. which I don't care about him, but he's a big thing. But like, I probably should be introducing and talking about the people who are playing our villains. I forgot completely to talk about the lady who plays Natalie French and introduce her as a special guest star for the episode, because she's actually known in the world a little bit. She's from South America, blah, blah, blah. So this is your shot, bitch. I got you right here, Miss French. Just call me Natalie. Anyways, I probably should have talked about the
Natalie.
actor that played Moloch, because he got into all that makeup and stuff. But those were just things that were, in my mind, like out of sight at the moment, you know? Fun.
I love it.
Welcoming our first Cordelia-centric episode. This is my third favorite episode for season 1. I know I was joking in the beginning, but this is seriously my third favorite episode for the whole season, because of the fact that Cordelia begins to have a rapport with Buffy and the gang beyond simply ridiculing them anymore. She drops some of her toot and harshness along with it, and we actually get to see Cordelia a little bit more this episode, not just in her screen time, but who she is and how she feels, and we get to see her interact in a new way with our gang, and especially even Buffy. Additionally, confiding in her later in the episode privately, but we'll get to that when we get to it. And she shows some vulnerability in this episode, which I really love for Cordelia, because we haven't gotten that. We've just got like straight bitch. And it's decreased, as I said a couple episodes ago, or maybe last episode. Don't remember. The recordings are blurring in my mind now because we're getting into the deeper stuff. I can't imagine how it's going to be when we're like in season 3. And I'm going to be like, shit, what the fuck did we say in season 2, episode 4? Don't remember, but either way. But I like how we've seen Cordelia change just a little bit as the episodes have gone on. She's like kind of more amped to talk to the gang now whenever we see her in this episode and moving forward. She finds out that Buffy is a slayer in this episode without all the other stuff coming into context about vampires and demons. She just knows that she's really at the forefront of all the weird stuff, and she actually seeks her out. There are also lots of acknowledgement that goes down for Buffy within it, and I live for it, which I have a cool segment on later. Not to mention that we get Giles and Angel meeting for the first time this episode, as we're getting breadcrumbed into our season finale from their interaction, because he talks about that book and such. We have a cool take on invisible people as well, and I can't help but think of the Kevin Bacon movie Hollow Man, because that's really good. I think that came out in the like early 2000s, or even the movie that you made me watch, The Invisible Man, which this episode is based off of the original like 19... I have it in the fun facts at the end of the episode, but I can't remember. But obviously the other one was a remake, the one that we watched.
I
It's
didn't
really
know
good.
that.
Obviously, like this whole invisible concept.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, I
same,
want to see
because I
that
mean,
old
that one was
one.
really good. And I think there's been a couple of remakes ever since. That's what Hollow Man is based off as well, but it's got like more of a science, sci-fi, suspense, thriller kind of action for it too. But I really like that movie. Kevin Bacon's freaking awesome. And most of the movies that he plays that are weird, like Tremors or Stir of Echoes. Have you ever seen Stir of Echoes?
Oh my god, that
Same.
movie
It used to
freaked me the
terrify me
fuck
when her
out.
nails
Yes,
break
I
off in the fucking
cannot.
floor and her teeth
Oh my
bust
god,
out.
I can't. I was just about to talk about the fingernails. No, stop. What is that movie even about? I don't even
A
understand.
ghost.
Still to this day, I think it just traumatized me more than I
I would
like,
say it's in my top 10
I
favorite
don't know.
ghost movies.
Really?
All right.
Maybe we should watch it together.
All right,
Original
great.
Invisible
Bonus
Man together.
episodes to come. Back to the episode, though, to mention the context along the episode for mental health that we get and how it affects Marcy by being on the Hellmouth, because obviously we got to get that Hellmouth spin. But it really works as our last monster of the week and end of season episode that helps add a lot to our story of Buffy and where she stands going into the season finale more than anything. What did you think of it? I'm so excited to hear, because I haven't texted you about it or anything.
I loved this episode. It was a lot of fun, and I didn't know how I was gonna feel about it, because I know that you mentioned it was very Cordelia-centered, so I was like, "Oh, shit. Where is this gonna go?" But I was really happy that they did open the door to kind of let her be more vulnerable and ask for help, and like you said, she acknowledged things that we've never seen her acknowledge before, and just a lot of different layers kind of were unveiled to us for her. So that was really nice to see, especially because I was just getting over the whole bully persona situation. I was like, I know we need to humanize her at some point, and I'm glad that point
She's
is
an
now.
onion. Her layers are coming open. A blooming onion, because she has
Yes.
to be a flowering onion. She can't be a normal onion, because Cordelia would be like, I'm not an onion. I'm a flower.
That's why everybody's always
For real,
crying
though.
around her.
This one like really throws me for a loop. I think that's why it's in my top ones, though, because it's not only just for the Cordelia-centered stuff, but just because of the stuff that happens in it. I'm just like, wow, what's going to happen next? And this just got some crazy stuff in it, so I'm going to be excited when we really get into it.
That hit me too. Even though it was hard for me to take seriously, just like the last one with the puppet, there were elements of the situation that I was just
I'm
like,
excited to see
I
which ones
cannot.
you're talking about. All right, great. Well, let's be like Marcy and listen and learn to what's going on in this episode.
In every generation, there is a chosen one. She alone will stand against the vampires, the demons, and the forces of darkness. She is the Slayer.
Like every episode, we open at Sunnydale High as Cordelia, her current boyfriend Mitch, and Harmony walk down the hall together. Cordelia is commenting how much she loves springtime, how this means she is caught in all the spring-colored fashions. Mitch notating something about spring training we don't care about. Cordelia mentions herself at the end of school dance, and Harmony chimes in the best of all this is the end of school is nigh for the year. Cordelia's favorite time of year. They cut the corner to the next hall, still yapping. She speaks on her dress being specially made for the May Queen coronation ceremony to take place at a school dance event, notating that off-the-rack clothes give her hives. No, Cordy, that's your mindset triggering the hives. But whatever. Mitch comments on how her dress will probably be blue like her eyes, and they both chuckle, but Cordelia snaps at him that her eyes are hazel, stupid fucker, and then calls him Helen Keller. A comment on someone who obviously cannot see, and therefore everyone appears out of sight to her with a little nod to what our episode will have in store for us. And while I'm here, let's rip on this ugly ass fucking shit Harmony has in her head, because that bow, we got the first little watch of fashion in this episode, and I was like, girl, why is she wearing this damn shamrock green
Fashion
Kelly
watch.
the fucking leprechaun looking bullshit? I wanted to untie it and just throw it in the garbage can while she was walking by the trash. I was like,
Ah.
They start to talk about how great Cordy is going to look in the May Queen photos, her arriving at the fact that she hasn't been elected yet. But before she can finish her sentence, Buffy comes running out grunting as she stumbles in front of the three, dropping out a bag that spills out onto the floor, just like in Welcome to the Hellmouth with Xander. And Buffy looks to them nervous as various weapons are seen, like stakes, crosses, and a busty medieval-looking flail, one of those handles with the chain and ball spiky thing. I did not know what that was called, but I had to look it up. It's called a flail. But all those things
I
dump
did
and
not
scatter
know.
all over the fucking floor because Buffy be like, hey, look, I'm a slayer, everybody. I also have weapons at school and I'm never kicked out. Ha ha ha. Literally Buffy. Behold the weirdness, Cordelia comments to Buffy before them, Buffy nervously looking up to them, stating that they are probably wondering why she has all these things. Wow, I'm not, Cordelia says. Buffy goes on to say that they are for history class and how Mr. Giles lent them to her for show and tell type shit. Harmony comments,
She is always hanging with that creepy librarian in that creepy library.
They decide to leave Buffy there, walking off as Cordelia asks Mitch if she ever told him about the time that Buffy attacked her at the Bronze and how she doesn't know how the school admits mentals like her. Buffy looks on with a moot face. We arrive in class as their teacher, Miss Miller, is teaching a lesson on the play by Shakespeare, The Merchant of Venice, speaking on a quote by its character Shylock, who states, if you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? And if you poison us, do we not die? She doesn't say it like that, but whatever. And if you wrong us, shall we not seek revenge? If you haven't noticed by now, the lessons taught in the class, Courtney, at the school always speak to the theme of the episode and what the characters are going to be dealing with in the episode. In the first episode, when we come into the classroom with Buffy meeting Cordelia, and she shares her book with her, the teacher is talking about the Black Death and writing Black Death on the board. And she's talking about bodies being found everywhere in the town, like all dropping dead and all that stuff. Big theme for the episode. So that was a little bit less in context.
Okay, they did it in Teacher's Pet too, obviously, because she's like giving a lesson
Yes,
about the praying
there we
mantis.
go. And that's how we found
Gotcha,
out about what
okay.
it was about. So it was the praying mantis, obviously Natalie French. But either way, this one is the biggest one that we've had so far. So I'm going to say that we're going to have a quick little English class. The Merchant of Venice. It's essentially a play about property and telling the story of a merchant who finds his own flesh as property to secure a loan for his friend Bassanio so he can impress a wealthy woman, borrowing said riches from the money lender, Shylock, who the teacher mentions, who calls in the debt and has him trade in said flesh for payment when he can't actually give back the loan. Pretty fucking nasty, just to say. Literally, he makes him like, I think he cuts pieces of his stomach away, like his flesh, and he says that you owe me £1, so I need you to give me £1 of flesh. But the play raises questions about the value of life itself. To further, the main message of it is often based in the idealistic and realistic ideas about relationships and society. Love is more important than money, and mercy is better than revenge. I should say mercy is better than revenge, but you know. The conclusion to its story is that one must be ready to help others in any critical situation and show mercy to others in cases of tension. One must never be so proud of their money or their property to harm others. And I'll get into more of that whenever we close. Now you've got the backstory and you can know exactly what the Merchant of Venice was about. And anybody else listening, just to give some context for later.
I had no idea. Definitely did not get that one.
Either way, Miss Miller asked the class, how does their discussion about the play relate to the anger of the outcast in society? Cordelia actually raises her hand in class, and she calls to her, and she comments on being self-involved, saying that Shylock is whining like the whole world is about him, acting as though justice is served with him getting a pound of Antonio's flesh, and how it's just yicky. Miss Harris asks if Shylock has suffered, asking what his place in Venice society is, and Willow comments on how he was looked down upon by them. Cordelia adding, it is a Twinkie defense, and he should get over himself.
People who think their problems are so huge craze me. Like this time I sort of ran over this girl on her bike. It was the most traumatizing event of my life, and she's trying to make it about her leg. Like my pain meant nothing.
Cordelia does raise a fair point to see both sides of every situation. I'll say that and give her grace in that moment. But because I mean, when we face a challenge or an altercation, obviously you got to see both sides of it. It's not always, even though she did hit somebody that was traumatizing to her too. Yes, you got to see it from that. But you also got to weigh out which one's bigger in the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
At all.
She
only
doesn't
sees
do that
herself, which is
well.
so funny that she's talking about some fucking person that's like seeing only themselves in a moment. But we'll get to it. She's getting better from here on out ish. She giving them pot kettle and vibes right now.
Literally.
Speaking on self-absorbed nature and then being self-absorbed, the irony. Miss Harris tries to sideline the fact that Cordelia is a nutcase, and she says that she raises interesting points, as we just also said. As the bell rings, of course, cutting the class discussion short, so they can pursue this at a later time. Cordy stops to chat with Miss Harris, who awards her for having done the reading, while Willow rolls her eyes behind her exiting the class. She mentions wanting to discuss her final paper with her, and she suggests maybe coming by the next day after school to discuss, to which she agrees. She exits the class, catching up with Harmony, saying that she received a call about her dress and how it was ready, and it's so great, and how Mitch is gonna die. We arrive in the locker rooms to see Mitch getting ready to change after a shower. Homeboys of his ask if they'll catch him at the Bronze later, and he replies that he has to pick up his tux first. Another dude walks up saying that he's got to look sharp to be on Cordelia's arm. Mitch commenting on how it's not her arm that he's looking to be on. They leave and he continues to get dressed as we see a point of view shot of someone watching him, and then we hear a girl's laugh as he looks around to see no one around. Who's there? Mitch calls out. He hears it again and says, fun time's over, come out, and grabs for the bat on top of his locker as it lifts itself up, and he is stunned as it floats, starting to swing on him numerous times. We get one final blow to him from his POV, and we cut to black and cue the Buffy theme. I do want to mention that the transition magic, like I said, Mitch is going to die, uttered by Cordy. When we watch Mitch get nearly beaten to death 2 seconds later, Mitch was fucking gross for his comments. But the fact that we have the second episode in a row where people getting beat up with a bat, because the episode beforehand in the puppet show, we had the ugly man with the bat in his arm that was mashing up these bitches and shit.
You are right.
Arriving during the same day in the halls, Cordelia is seen handing out chocolate coins with a C on them to sway votes in her favor, and of course associate her with something sweet in the process. She picks up her gang of Cordettes, and they follow along with her. She passes by Buffy, not offering her a chocolate, verbally stating not needing the votes of loons. Buffy has a lame comeback that she doesn't even like chocolates, so she doesn't care. Lord Cordelia and the rude gotta be a bitch, all for the show though. Gotta basically set up as a reminder that she's an asshole before we get like the deeper layers of her onion. Of course, in this moment, Xander and Willow meet up with Buffy, asking what's Cordelia up to. Buffy saying she's up to bribery, desperate to be May Queen. He expresses that woman loves her titles, and Willow brings up something that happened with her in 6th grade that they both found hilarious, apparently, because they are both smitten by this memory, turning into laughing weirdos. A special note as well to say that Willow was spotted with the Kool-Aid burst again. She's got that Kool-Aid juicy juice in her hand in this scene.
Yes, I
Good, I'm
noticed that. I
glad,
wrote
because
it
I
in my
just brought it up,
notes.
so it's awesome, because we haven't seen that since Witch. I was like, call back. I love whenever Willow's having these, because it's 90s nostalgia. Also, she has the Scooby-Doo shirt on too, which will make sense later. Buffy
Yes.
comments that they are speaking in tongues, that she hasn't a clue on the context. They try to dial down their laughter and explain it, but it's a you had to be there moment, chalking it up to Cordelia just having a history of trying too hard. Xander notes what kind of a moron would want to be May Queen anyway, and Buffy turns to her locker, putting her things in, stating that she had to hide her face because she was about to spit on Xander. Xander eats his words and tries to reprimand his statement. Buffy tells them that it wasn't called May Queen, but all the same dance and coronation elements were there for it, and how it was nice, obviously reminiscing on a thing of the past for her. Xander tells her, well, you don't need that anymore. You got us, and points to Willow, who starts to burst out laughing again, commenting the phrase that made them go into a laughter frenzy moments before.
Be my deputy.
This whole fucking scene, though, like, Willow and him,
I
they're
could
so
not
goofy.
take it. It was too much. I was like, I don't know if it's like their acting is just bad in this. Like one day they're like, we can't get it together, and they're just like actually hating each other offset. So Willow's like, I'm not trying to laugh at you, Xander. Like, I want to murder you right now. Or if they genuinely just can't fake this moment. Because I feel like if somebody was like, Brandon and Courtney, please get on camera and pretend that you're laughing, I feel like you and I would channel our actual inside joke and be like in hysterics actually, and do it way better than them, because I was like, I have secondhand
Be
embarrassment for
my
them right now.
deputy.
No.
I think it's funny. It's cute. Once again, for me, I like it because of the fact that, like, Willow and Xander, as I said last episode, they have this history together. So it's funny that they've got this inside joke, but this whole interaction is just stupid. I get that part of it because it's so dumb.
Yeah.
She's so cheesy looking at
Yeah,
his ass. So
totally.
I could get, as a new time viewer, you're just like, wow, the corn on this is really husking. Some guy comes in, breaking up this awkward moment, announcing to the hall that Mitch got wailed on and they think that he might be cutscene transition magic, as Principal Snyder says, speaking to the students in another hall near the locker rooms. Dead? Of course not. What are you, ghouls? There are no dead students here this week. I love that fucking shit. Asking students to clear out the room for paramedics who are wheeling Mitch out on a stretcher. Mitch is all bruised up to hell and back, and Buffy pauses them to ask Mitch what happened. He tells her he heard something and tried to grab a bat, but then it was floating and it knocked him out. They cart him away and she trails off to check the scene, Snyder stopping her, asking, where do you think you're going? Buffy excuses that Mitch asked her to grab his beloved comb, because no preppy boy should be left without that, duh. He states to her that Mitch doesn't need as such right now. He needs medical attention, and she needs to stay away from the crime scene, adding how she's always sticking her nose in. But before he can finish his sentence, we hear Willow yell out, "Sue? Mitch was going to sue the school?" This alarms Snyder and distracts him. He moves over to her and Xander, asking, "Sue? Who? What? Why? No, let's not have that," giving Buffy the chance to slip into the rooms. Willow's coming through with a distraction for Buffy to sneak off. We love it. They be sitting out there pondering perception. They're like, how can we help Buffy? She does a slow walk through, arriving at the bat on the floor, giving it a little kick. It's immobile and inanimate. She moves over to the lockers by it, checking them out where Mitch had been, and noticing that there are letters spray painted onto 4 of the lockers. She folds them closed, and the word look, L-O-O-K, appears to be spelled out across them as a message. We flash to the cafeteria later in the day, and they're having lunch. Buffy is discussing the message with her friends as Giles approaches and takes a seat with them. Buffy notating that monsters don't usually leave messages, so she feels that this was way different than their average attacks. Giles agrees, and she loves being right, asking him if he has any theories. He doesn't have anything yet. He hasn't heard of anyone getting attacked by a lone baseball bat before. Xander adding what I thought was a pretty good joke, and how maybe it was a vampire bat. But it goes underappreciated by the gang. But I laughed, Xander, on, the last couple episodes you've been giving us the laugh, so I'm going to give it to you here. I thought it was funny. Giles ponders. He wonders if it could be someone who did it with the telekinesis, or possibly an invisible person, or maybe a ghost. Maybe it's the second one, Giles. If so, a very angry one it would have to be. Willow comments if it's a ghost, that means they're dealing with a dead kid. Buffy agrees and asks her to compile a list of dead or missing students as a good place to start research. Giles says that he will check his other leads, asking if Xander will like to help. Xander unenthused at the homework he has to do, Buffy admitting that this is a part of the glamorous world of vampire slayage. He asks what part does she have? She says that she will be finding out about Mitch. Feeling that this attack wasn't random, he says he wants that part. She offers, fine, he can go do that. Then she mentions that it will involve talking to his friends, his main friend being Cordelia. He chokes on his food, taking back his remarks and glorifying how research with Giles is the move, and he is pleased to be doing as such now. Outside on the second floor, leading to the courtyard down below, Cordelia is sipping from the school fountain when Harmony approaches her, asking where she was 5th period. Cordelia states that she went to the hospital to see Mitch, Harmony asking how he is. She comments for 2 seconds about his condition and how he will be fine. Doctors are releasing him the next day, but then segues right out of his pain and suffering to her pain and suffering in the form of his black and blue state that will drag down their May Queen photos, and they will render useless to show people in the future because she will be all pretty and he will look jacked the fuck up. Harmony tries to salvage it, saying that airbrush and photo editing may do some wonderful things. In this instant, we flash back to the past in an odd sepia usage tone for our camera and see Cordelia sipping from the same fountain and Harmony coming up to her and the two girls gossiping the year before about how Mitch had broke up with his girlfriend and how he's already nosing around for a new girl. That new girl could be her, but only if he makes varsity, because then only will Cordelia see him worthy of her time. We take notice that someone has been standing near them and says, "Hey guys," to them. Cordelia and Harmony look to the girl, and Cordelia snaps, "What do you want?" before we flash out of the past and back to the present. Harmony and Cordelia move to the staircase to transition down to the courtyard, but are paused at the top by Buffy coming out the double doors on a connected hall to ask Cordelia if she can chat with her. Oh, great, Cordelia eye rolls. Harmony starts to snark about, "Why is Buffy always trying to talk to us, blah, blah, blah," but her words are cut short when we see her get pushed back by an invisible force, and her body goes tumbling backwards down the flight of stairs. Bye, Harmony, shouldn't have been talking shit, the fuck, that's what you get. She crashes at the bottom, Cordy and Buffy with other students rushing down after her. Snyder conveniently appears before them, crying out for heaven's sake, because why is something always happening at this school in bad form? He's like, fuck, I hate this job. He directs the student to go get the school nurse. Harmony whines about her ankle and thinking that it may be broken, but otherwise okay from her fall. Buffy starts to ask what happened, but Snyder snaps at her, reminding her who the authority figure is, to only ask the same question, which Cordy answers for her, saying she fell. She just fell all by herself. Harmony saying, "No, I was pushed." We hear a girl passing by that we can't see who is laughing. Obviously we know this is Marcy at this point. As Buffy stands up, following after the sounds, and Snyder leans down to Harmony saying, "Don't sue." He's like, "Please don't sue." He's like, "I already got this bug in my ear. I'm freaking the fuck out." He's like, "I'm about to go work at the ice cream shop." And then Willow's gonna be like, "All right, cool. See you there." Buffy makes her way back up the staircase to investigate the girl, still laughing off and on, and sees a door closing and follows her inside. She moves through the office space, only to be ran by and bumped into by nothing, and calls out, "Hey, who's here?" Buffy leaves the offices, which lead into the band room. She looks around as we see a panel in the ceiling above her raising as someone sneaking up into there, and it closes before Buffy realizes. Sensing or seeing nothing, Buffy leaves. But also, this bitch is in the ceiling. Like, oh my word.
Okay, have we talked about frogging already? People who are
Maybe, but I
froggers?
don't think this sparks in my mind initially.
Okay, so froggers, there's this show, I think it's called Froggers or Frogging, something along those lines. And it's a term used to describe people who literally live inside people's houses without them knowing, like up in their attic or in their basement or in their crawl space. I was watching this thing the other night where this girl was dating this guy and she broke up with him. And like way later down the line, he like gets accused of murder. He basically, I think, murdered like 4 women or something. But this specific woman, for some reason, he didn't immediately let his crazy show, or she wasn't aware, but she finds out that he cut into the back of her couch and made like an insert, and he was living in her couch with her there. And when she would like go to work, he would like go use the bathroom and eat and blah blah blah. And then when he knew that she'd be home over the weekend, he would just leave and like go stay somewhere else and then come back on Monday.
What in the fuck?
What the fuck, right? So anyway, whenever this like all this stuff unfolded and Buffy's like in this attic space or like whatever in the ceiling and she finds all the stuff, I'm like, oh shit, somebody's up there frogging.
Marcy the Frogger. I didn't know that was a term. I've heard of stuff like that. There was this little Netflix show I watched where that person was receiving the letters in the mail from some person that had owned the house previously. Can't remember the name of the show, but that I think was a premise. Like they were using underneath the ground tunnels to travel from their houses over to that person's house and basically like being in the house whenever they were home and stuff and doing weird shit. Like that's what that's giving for me. So I didn't know that was a whole thing. I was thinking when you said frogging or Frogger, I was like the video game from PlayStation that I used to play.
Yeah, I don't know why it's called that. I'm not sure like what the story is behind that, but yeah, that's what it was giving. I was like, oh shit,
Right.
somebody
That
frogging
just
at the
tripped me out.
school.
I get hiding, but you're literally invisible. Like, so what are you getting up in the ceiling for? But makes sense for later.
I know. Yeah, true.
Later in the day, the bell dismisses school, and we are deliberately shown two men in black looking agents outside the school before we meet our core four walking out its main doors, Buffy asking Giles if he's ever touched a ghost, to which he says no and describes it as a cold, amorphous feeling. Only Giles would be using words like amorphous. That word means without a clearly defined shape or form, lacking clear structure or focus, because I did not know what amorphous means.
He does
He
that
does, but I
often.
didn't know what that word meant, so I looked it up, and now we know. But either way, Giles says that. He also says that touching a ghost gives a feeling that makes one's hair stand up. Buffy is deciding to rule out ghost as she touched it, and it didn't go through her. It just bumped into her, and it wasn't cold. Xander asks, so what, we're talking about an invisible person? Buffy states, a girl. She heard her laugh. Giles regurgitates the theory, assuming that it's a power that she wields to do as such, and Xander says it's so cool and goes on to mention that he would use that power to, quote, protect the girls' locker room. And I was going to have another fashion moment watch, because when I was looking at Xander this whole scene, that navy blue color that he's wearing looks so good on him. Like, I will just say, because he's got those dark features and all that other shit. And I was going to comment on it because I was saying it in my head. I was like, write this in your notes, Brandon. Write that Xander's fucking cute, blah, blah, blah. But then he opened his mouth and said this shit. And I got sidetracked real quick, because how in the hell everyone just going to ignore Xander's comment about him using invisibleness to protect the locker girls' room? So we back on watching vulnerable girls change in front of you while you watch Xander? Like, well, what? No, we are not. We are not about that. Jesus Christ. And I love how also we were out here chilling outside the school, and Giles is still just right here chilling with all these students chatting, because he was just in the cafeteria hanging out with them discussing shit, and now he's outside after school hanging out with these students too. Like, they always seen him in the library. Harmony definitely already knows, because she's like, he's always in that creepy library with that creepy librarian. Nobody say anything.
Yeah, I have never seen this dynamic before in school, where just like even one student, but much less like 2, 3, 4 students are just hanging out with some random staff at the school. Like, they're friends, they're buddies. You see them between classes, you see them before classes, you see them after
It's
classes.
Sunny
You're like,
High.
what the
That's what the
fuck's
fuck's
going
going
on
on
here?
here. Everything goes.
Like, I would have been like, by now, if I was a different student and I didn't know, I would be like, is Giles like a cult
Exactly.
leader? Is he like Charles Manson?
Exactly. The real premise of the show. Love
Plot
that.
twist.
Willow wonders how she got the powers, and that maybe she's a witch, commenting on how they could fight a witch, giving us a nod back to episode 3, Witch. By the way, where's Amy at? We haven't seen Amy in like 9 episodes. Xander comments on gods using invisibility cloaks, but Buffy discredits this girl as any sort. She seems too petty to be a god. Willow clocking that she has a grudge, but why Harmony? Xander adding Harmony and Mitch. Common denominator is Buffy finishing this round of Connect the Dots to exclaim Cordelia. Buffy suggests the next morning that Willow should pull up the missing kids list. Willow and Xander leave, him asking Willow if she wants to come over for dinner at his place, noting that his mom is making her famous call to the Chinese place, and Willow asking if they even have a stove at his house. I said in the beginning too, I love the exchanges between Xander and Willow, especially for their friendship dynamic and the history, because he comments on his mom's famous call, obviously showing that they eat out a lot and such, and Willow takes notice of this and has probably been over for meals a lot. But it like kind of points out too, in a fun like introspective moment for Xander, that his family rarely cooks meals, and it's our first bit into his home life too. And we see that he obviously doesn't have like a tight family where they all sit around a table and eat dinner together and have like a home cooked meal. He probably more than likely rush eats his meals or eats takeout instead of that. And it leads me to think that he sits in his room more than anything probably and eats his food like by himself and like reads or listens to music or whatever the fuck he's doing. You can tell he doesn't really do as such. I'm seeing like rewatching the show now, some little things about his home life that are just like really put out in front of our face. Because he's already mentioned like his like low budget uncle that was working at the factory that Malcolm was at before it closed down, and he was a janitor there. You know what I mean? So like what Uncle Rory, I think it was.
Yeah.
But little context for
Yeah.
later, just but to make sure you're paying that attention. But I like thought it was cool because like once again we got the Willow and Xander drop, and it also was another moment for Buffy to feel estranged from the group because they didn't really invite her, even though they didn't say it right in front of her. They were walking away, but they left Buffy there. When they walk away, they don't invite her and stuff, so it leaves her kind of shunned, so that way she feels kind of connected to like how Marcy feels, and we see that later on in the episode. But like obviously they should have just invited Buffy, because I'm pretty sure she likes Chinese food too, you know. But she's like, I gotta get home because my mom's cooking dinner. She's always cooking good food, you know.
She's keeping positive vibes.
Energy or something, I don't know. Anyways, Buffy and Giles ponder moments more about how he will research ways to decloak an invisible person. Buffy saying Cordelia should be at the school tonight, working on her dress so she can keep an eye out on her. Start the hunt. Giles questions how she will begin to hunt someone that she can't see, and she just looks at him. He sarcastically notes that she may have to work on actually listening to people. Ha ha, very funny, she says, as we transition to her in the halls that evening. In a very popping leather fit, might I add. You know, Buffy Fashion Watch, always got to be here for it. That outfit was like killing it. I love the tones that she's wearing, the browns and the blacks and the nudes, her eye makeup matching, and that lip color that she had. Ugh, I was obsessed. Yeah, she's hot. I know you want it. I do too. She peeks through a glass into the room where Cordy is surrounded by girls, ogling her, helping her pin her dress and make minor adjustments, all while adoring the moment of Barbie dress up. AKA Cordelia is Queen Payman right now, King Payman's sister from Hereditary, and these are her loyal followers. I mean, she even gets the crown later, so I mean, I think this is pretty accurate. If you know, you know. I haven't mentioned Hereditary in a fun contextual way in the episode, so here it is, our Hereditary drop. No
At
heads
least
are
no
not
heads
yet.
are
Not
flying
until Marcy
off.
get that knife out at the end, but we've been slacking. Buffy smiles watching this, but then bows her head looking sad and goes to walk off, seeing Cordy has people with her, so no attack should happen. But she hears a flute playing and follows the sounds. In the library, we also see Giles pause before the music stops. Also hearing it, he continues gathering books when hearing a door creak open. He stops again, asking aloud who is there. He looks around, noticing his reflection in a bookcase window. He stares for a moment, then turns away to see Angel standing next to him, and he gets a good jump scare because he's like, ah, shit, I didn't see you there because, you know, mirror. He looks right back into that mirror to see only himself, stunned, looking back at Angel, quoting, "A vampire casts no reflection." Angel notes that he not worry. He's not there to eat. Giles tells him Buffy informed him that he doesn't feed from humans anymore. Not for a long while, he replies. Giles asking if that's what he's there for, to see her. He expresses that he can't. It's too hard to be around her. Giles stating,
A vampire in love with a slayer. It's rather poetic. In a maudlin sort of way.
in a maudlin sort of way. And here we go again with Giles saying words I haven't a clue to what they mean. I guess we're just going to have a small segment now called Vocabulary Lessons with Giles so we can learn all new words from the walking dictionary himself. So here we go for our first round of Vocabulary Lessons with Giles. That's my thing that I'll sing every time. The word maudlin means sad or tearfully sentimental in a foolish way. So he's saying that Buffy being in love with a fucking vampire is sad and tearfully sentimental in a stupid ass way. I was like, fuck, he's just ripping on her. I was like, I wonder if Angel knows what maudlin means.
No.
I thought it's cool that we finally get the confirmation on where Angel's been the last damn 3 episodes. He feels that he can't be around Buffy, so he's sticking to what we heard as their agreement at the end of Angel when he's like, we, you know, need to stay separated from each other. And she's like, someone has to walk away, you know, and then she has to be the one to do it after she burns that cross all up in his chest and shit. But either way, he's obviously here to talk with Giles and inform him of this book of Slayer prophecies that we will tie into the season finale later. Giles asks what he can do for Angel, who comments he knows that he's been researching the Master. Giles agrees, saying that he's been trying to learn as much as he can about him for the day that Buffy must face him. Angel goes on about how he knows something's already in motion, something big, asking if Giles has read all the Slayer lore that there is. Giles lets him know that he's studied some extant volumes, but the most salient books on Slayer prophecy, such as the Tiberius Manifesto and the Pergamum Codex, noting that the second has the most complete prophecies of the Slayer's role in the end, mentioning also that both books have been lost since the 15th century. Not lost, misplaced, Angel says him. Also, that he can get it. Giles gasps, exclaiming that that would be most helpful. Perhaps falling in love with Angel in the moment, too, based on his face, Giles comments on how his own volumes have not been the best of late, showing Angel his current books and tells him of an invisible girl who's terrorizing the school. Angel credits he can't help, essentially, and goes on quickly to mention once again about looking in the mirror and seeing nothing is a strange feeling, as we get more cutscene transition magic to the past, and we're once again immersed into that sepia-toned life. We see Marcy in the girls' room looking at herself in the mirror as Cordy and her friends enter. She's griping about what I'm guessing is some school lecture a man gave they all attended and how she hated it. Arriving at the mirror standing around her, Marcy comments to them,
Did you guys see his toupee? I mean, it looks like a cabbage.
no one pays her attention. Cordelia goes on about his slads, once again hating on the man, Harmony chiming in as well about how he didn't have variations, just the same ones used over and over. Marcy again mentions his toupee and how it was the worst, trying to make them laugh. Harmony snaps a look at her and says, "We're talking, okay?" Marcy looks down for a moment, but then back over at Cordelia says,
Oh, and did you guys check out that extreme toupee? Yeah, that's realistic. It looked like a cabbage.
They go to walk out, Cordy's friends commenting that that was so funny and how no one else had said that statement 45 seconds in there before with them. I wanted to commentate on the fact that we see you, Marcy. Cordelia doesn't, but we do. She wants so bad to be a part of this group. Wait, no, actually, just to be acknowledged. But I think this is the point when Marcy starts to grow the furthest away from reality and her estranged nature. This moment specifically, I believe, is when she starts to really contribute to her turning invisible as well. This poor girl, before, crazy. There's only so much a person can take, especially one with low self-esteem and not being okay with just like being on their own. I wouldn't care. I would just like go about life because, I wouldn't really care about not having interactions. I would just like find my own way to do my own thing and shit. But I guess the interactions need to make her feel needed or encouraged to be a part of society at this point. So I can't really relate with Marcy, but I can empathize for her. Cordelia low-key is going to get what she deserves by the end. She even stole her line as it was her own. Like, that shit was pissing me off the whole episode because she's sitting there trying to talk to them and give her 2 cents, and they're just like completely ignoring her. And that's the first time I think actually we see Marcy, because the last time we saw her, it was just like a person saying hey to Cordelia and Harmony, and they were like, fuck off, like whatever. And we actually get to see this interaction this time and see them physically just blatantly ignoring her. And I'm just like, who the fuck treats people like this?
I don't think I could ever do that. Like, I don't know. But also, I feel like that can't have been her first experience with that exact dynamic. And at some point, aka after the first time of me trying to talk to you or like basically insert myself into your group conversation, which also she was wrong for, but anyway. But if I try to do that one time and a whole entire group of people, not just one or two, but the whole entire group of people is just straight out shunning me out, I don't think I'm ever going to approach them again. Or care, like you said, but I'm definitely not going to keep trying again. I'm just gonna be like, whatever. I try to say hey to you in the hallway and you act like I don't exist. I'm much less going to walk up to you in the bathroom and try to join
Literally, she should have stopped at John. But she's not that type of personality. She's not like us. She is literally a tryhard, and at this point is like wanting any kind of attention. And as we find out later in the episode, no one's giving it to her at all. Like, at all. Like, nobody. Not even the fucking teacher. Yeah.
Not even the teachers.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
I don't even get that point, which makes me so mad at Miss Harris. Miss Harris almost, I ain't gonna talk about her bitch ass right now. We'll talk about her in a minute. Still. Ugh.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that
But
later.
yeah, this is where I, like, essentially the message I was trying to get across is, like, where I started to really feel bad for Marcy before she started getting psychotic by the episode's end. I was just like, this poor girl has been through a ringer. Either way, here we got to come with more fuel for the fucking fire, because out in the courtyard, Principal Snyder stands on a platform in front of a floral decorated arch at a podium, announcing Cordelia as this year's May Queen. Cordelia steps up to take the mic and announce to everyone how she thanks them for making the right choice and for showing her how much they all love her. Okay, but why can't we have a Midsummer May Queen moment and stick this bitch in a bear costume in a triangular building filled with hay? Because that's all I'm thinking after that interaction in the girls' locker room at the moment, to be quite honest. But she goes on about how this is a big responsibility and she takes it very seriously. I'm like, do you, Cordelia? This is what I was talking about, set fire to the blaze, because we know Marcy is standing out here somewhere in the fucking field watching you with this interaction, and she got her fist balled up like that Arthur meme, looking at Cordelia talking about, grrr. Fucking crazy.
Oh, shit.
Willow and Xander find Buffy out there, still in Cordelia watch and protect mode. Willow hands over the dead and missing list to Buffy. And boy, can I say, Willow got a good 8 pages to give her, because that was a thick-ass little pamphlet. I was like, the fuck? This is how many people dead or missing at Sunnydale High? What the hell is going on? But are we surprised? No, we are not. But also a Buffy fashion moment, because Buffy is back in baby blue. And I love this cut slit top on her. It's super cute. We see it better whenever she chats with Cordelia later. Hopefully you already noticed. I do have to say that ascot has got to go, because apparently I just do not like ascots. Nobody should be putting anything around their neck unless it's a noose or a scarf,
I agree. The glasses weren't working for me either.
Brittany, take it back!
No. I'm not taking
my
that back. I even wrote it down in my notes. Like, the
No,
shade,
it's because
they're
you're seeing
done.
them up close for a different reason, because I was gonna comment on the purple sunglasses. I love them.
What do you mean? Because I can see them with eyes and I have
No, first of
vision.
all, like,
She need to give those glasses to Marcy so they can be invisible.
my heart is shattered right now. Listeners, do you hear Courtney just dragging our beloved Buffy through the fucking mud? Listen, let me
I'm not dragging her through the mud. I'm dragging the
That's fine. You
glasses
can hate them right
through
now, but
the
I have to
mud.
remind you, because these are the same sunglasses that we saw when she was approaching the gate on the Harvest episode. Whenever Principal Flutie stopped her and she had to hop the fence and stuff like that, those are the same ones that we commented her pushing up onto her head. It must be because they weren't on her face when we actually got the interaction.
They
Apparently,
look better on her head. They should
listen,
only
I
be
love
used as a
them. I
headband.
love them. They're
I'm glad you do, because I'm gonna look those glasses up online and buy you some for Christmas, and I want you to wear them every single day that it's sunny
I
or
will. When it's
not.
not sunny, I'll push them up on my fucking forehead. Ew, you guys, I am officially
Please
taking
do.
on new guests for the podcast. If you guys want to start sending in
Fuck off.
applications,
Listen, you didn't make a requirement to
I
agree
didn't.
with
I
your point of
love
view only.
backlash, so I'm totally welcoming of it. I'm just being dramatic right now. But I'm slowly getting over it, and my blood is not boiling anymore. I'm not trying to act like Marcy. I'm trying to act like your best friends. Let me calm down. Let me pull into my inner Buffy. Let me actually seek out Joyce's energy right now and keep the positive vibes flowing. All right, we're back. Anyways, back on Buffy Fashion Watch before all that awfulness. We also got a clip in her head again, but this time it's actually holding back some hair.
There's no way I can handle the bad glasses and a randomly
I'm
placed
literally going
clip.
to be
I just
terrified for
can't do
Buffy
it.
Fashion Watch from now on, because I'm going to be like, Buffy looks hot, Buffy looks not. I'm like dead. Anyways,
Well, it
back
will
on some
happen
other fashion in
sometimes.
the show, Willow notates on the men in black standing nearby watching the area, asking if Cordelia has hired bodyguards. They comment nothing more on it as Buffy calls out the recent disappearance of a girl named Marcy Ross 6 months ago. Xander and Willow both say that they don't know her. Buffy notates her only activity was band. She played the flute. Willow shrugs, giving a so. Buffy comments on how the evening before she heard a flute playing in the school, but she couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and how it was in the band room that she lost Miss Invisible earlier that day. Buffy tells them the dots are dotting and she's connecting and gonna go check it out. They part ways, and Buffy is seen in the band room later, investigating, finding a dirty shoe print on the chair being used to gain higher access, noticing a small crack in the ceiling open, the same one we saw open earlier and somebody slipped into, aka Marcy, because we knew it was Marcy the whole time. Buffy climbs up there, moving through, noticing a corner area draped off with bedding items, snacks, and the flute laying over top the blankets with sheet music. Marcy is up there with her, watching from a corner as we see her point of view and hear her breathing, but obviously Buffy doesn't. Like, I'm like, what kind of Slayer are you? You got all those senses to see angel or no angels in the room with you in the Harvest and turn around and just call him out, but yet you can't sense somebody that you can't see. Like, I don't get it. These are the dots that were not connecting for me, but whatever. Buffy goes through her things, finding her yearbook, opening it to find her name inside and saying it aloud. So it is you. We see a knife floating behind Buffy, but it lowers when she says the statement, and she backs away, and Buffy exits the area, leaving the band room, taking the yearbook with her. This bitch, she just never went home to her parents. She just said, I'm gonna go live up here, because obviously beforehand we didn't see that she was living up in there. We just thought maybe she was trying to hide up in the fucking ceiling. No, this bitch is fucking living up in there, and she up in here eating out the vending machines. I don't know where she getting money or she's stealing shit from it or what, but she's just got like snack bags up there and all this stuff. I'm like, what the hell? But I thought it was interesting when Marcy backed off as soon as Buffy said her name out loud, because we see that knife floating back there, and all of a sudden she's like, Marcy. And she's like, oh my God, someone acknowledged me. What the fuck?
I wonder too if it has something to do with maybe she was like invisible at home.
I would
Like her parents
imagine
don't even
so.
care. Obviously,
Her,
because I'm
her
like, how do you just what is going on? Like, first off, they said this missing persons report was from 6 months ago. And y'all are just now coming to the bottom of this. She's been living up there for 6 months. I'm like, where the
I
fuck
guess
she
it's
been when all this
missing.
other shit's
I
been
guess
going
the
down?
school would have had a reporter as missing because of that, but like, I'm sure her parents literally didn't even notice that she was gone. I made
Yeah,
a
for
funny
sure.
crack on my notes that the next Slayer was about to get called on account of Marcy stabbing Buffy in the back of her head. First we got Fritz and Dave trying to fry Buffy. Now we got Marcy out here trying to slice a bitch. Just a full-on murder.
Oh my god, what a savage, I know.
Either way, speaking of, we see Miss Harris sitting in her classroom waiting for Cordelia. We hear the door shut, and she assumes it's her commenting on the lateness, but looks over to see no one, not even a floating plastic bag. We hear a laugh, and she calls out who's there as an empty plastic bag emerges over her head, and she is yoinked back as Marcy is attempting to suffocate her. Cordelia arrives outside the classroom, knocking, then opening it to find Miss Miller collapsed onto her desk. Taking in the sitch, Cordelia, alarmed, runs over to her, removing the bag in just the nick of time for her to gasp for air and wake. Cordelia asks what happened, and she tells her that she was attacked, but she didn't see. We do, however, see the chalk start flowing. Here comes more items floating for you, Courtney. By the chalkboard, as the two look overhead, Marcy writes in her second message across the board, "Listen, Listen," she said, with an exclamation point and a heart. XO Marcy. XO Gossip Girl. All right, great. Listen. She wants us to listen to something. In the library, Buffy is telling the gang of her finding Marcy's hideout and presents them with the yearbook, which is adorned with "Have a nice summers" and no actual messages. They teach Giles that this is the kiss of death you write when you have nothing to say. Buffy comments on how both Xander and Willow also wrote it in her book, but they can't even recall who she was. Willow is stunned to realize that they have 4 classes with her the previous year. Buffy declares so no one noticed her and now she's invisible. Xander questioning she turned invisible because no one noticed her? Yes, that's what we just said, Xander. Giles slams a fist in an aha motion and gets up saying, "Of course! He should have researched physics." He speaks to how a rudimentary concept suggests reality is shaped, maybe even created by our perception. Buffy adding, and with the Hellmouth sending out mystical energy, Giles completing, Marcy perceived people to see her as invisible, so she became as such. We get one final sepia-toned flashback. Miss Harris is teaching the class, asking students to answer her. Many raise their hands, but Cordelia is called on. Marcy sits just beside her, hand also raised, Willow and Xander behind them. Cordelia gives her answer, and the teacher asks for the next answer, calling on Willow's raised hand, even calling on Xander to add in. Miss Harris asks yet another question, and hands are being raised, calling on a few more students, completely overlooking Marcy, giving a deep sigh and a sad look upon her face as alarming dun-dun-duns start to play amongst the soft piano keys playing for our background music. She looks over to her hand as it starts to fade and turn translucent, disappearing before her. I know we already commented on it, but damn, even the teacher won't call on this bitch. Like, she ignoring the fuck out of her. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, that's gotta suck, though. I don't know if it's bag over the head suck, but how the fuck does the class not even take notice to her literally disappearing in this action, too? This is wild, and all these flashback scenes, like, are making me feel awful for her at the same moment in motion, but how did nobody in the whole entire class see this bitch go invisible? I know it's Sunnydale. We have the Hellmouth. I'm sure people were always showing up dead all the time here. This has just been a theme of the town. But what the fuck, man? I think that this scene is really sad, just to commentate on it more, because it makes me feel awful for Marcy. Like, the music that they chose to pair with the scene, too, and her just looking at her hand, my, like, heart sunk into my stomach. And I was like, this is so sad. I can't say it enough this episode for Marcy. Like, I feel bad for her, but not really, because we see how she turns out in the end.
But then again, we can't blame her, I don't think. I just feel like if it's as far, I don't know, there's a certain, I guess, level of normalcy when we're exposed to the student dynamic of her being ignored by, like, the popular group or something. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that probably happens in every school, you know, like, there's the popular kids and the not so popular kids. But I'm like, damn, you're full on getting just ignored by a teacher, and you're out here eagerly raising your hand, which already, by the way, no one ever does. So the fact that you're one of, like, 5 people that keeps raising your hand and the teacher's not even, like, seeing you, I probably would have lost
but
my
I don't see
mind
why
a
she's
little
not
bit
just
too.
freaking out. Like, especially in the class, too. Why wouldn't you just stand up and be like, "Do you not see me raising my hand, Miss Harris?" And then she would have been like, "Oh, I'm sorry. What's your name?" Like, anything. But interject a little,
You've been in my
Marcy. Like,
class.
stand up for yourself, too. Because if you grew a backbone and, like, spit in Cordelia's face in the bathroom or slammed her fucking face into the mirror, Cordelia would have been like, "Damn, you remember that time Marcy fucking jacked me up in the bathroom? They know who you are now, Marcy." They could be like, "Damn, you saw that blonde girl hit me the other day at class?" It is wild. Either way,
That's so
back in
true.
real time, Buffy comments to the gang,
This isn't this great power that she can control. It's something that was done to her. That we did to her.
"No, not you, Buffy. You weren't at Sunnydale High yet, nor was Giles. This is everyone else's fault," including Xander and Willow. Speaking of Willow, she realizes that she has validity in her being miffed, aka she's pissed the fuck off. What does she want? Xander asks, Buffy flipping the pages of the yearbook to arrive at Cordelia's photo, which has been scratched to hell and back, making her look like a devil, and it reads the message underneath it.
This girl is the nastiest skank bitch I've ever met. Do not trust her. She is a fugly slut.
Buffy says as such, just what we thought, Cordelia. As Cordelia comes walking in, quick as fuck into the library, saying, "What?" having heard her name. And we get another round of cutscene transition magic. She arrives at the table saying,
I knew you'd be here, Buffy. I know we've had our differences with you being so weird and all, and hanging out with these total losers.
Looking over to Xander and Willow, who just gave her bitch really looks.
Ooh. Well, anyway, despite all of that, I know that you share this feeling that we have for each other deep down.
Willow commenting,
Nausea?
Somebody is after me. They just tried to kill Mrs. Miller. She was helping me with my homework. And Mitch and Harmony. This is all about me. Me.
Wow.
For once, she's right, Xander announces. We get the fact that Cordelia has come to Buffy for help because
you're always around when all this weird stuff is happening. And I know you're very strong. And you've got all those weapons. I was kind of hoping you were in a gang.
She whines for her to please help because she has no one else to turn to, actually forming tears because she's scared. To which our gang picks up on. Giles gets up from his chair, bringing it around to her to take a seat in. She says thank you and takes it. He remarks, "You know, I don't recall ever seeing you here before." She says back, oh no, I have a life." This shit funny as fuck, I will say. Buffy clears her throat, knowing that moment was over for them, fully immersing into her upsettedness. She tells Cordelia what they've already figured out about her attacker, showing her who Marcy is, and if she has any idea why she'd be so. Cordelia cuts her off to make a remark on her outfit in the picture. Xander comments, "So homicidal?" Cordelia hasn't a clue. She's never seen her before in her life. But you have, but okay. Up in her attic space, Marcy is pissed the fuck off, and she's ranting to herself, having overheard them in the library when she's been eavesdropping, going on about
You got a point because you didn't see me coming. Cordelia, you remember. I remember you, all your idiot slut friends. I mean, I hate them. They take your life and they suck it out of you, those bastards. And they didn't see me coming. No, they gotta learn. They gotta learn.
She unveils a black bag and rope, saying, "They've gotta learn." Oh fuck, here come Marcy with the craziness. Back in the library, Giles is speaking on the two messages now left behind. Look and listen. Him slapping Xander's feet off the damn table here. I was dying. I was like, he was like, "Get the fucking feet off my table, bro. Like, this ain't a chill spot. You need to do work. You need to research, or I'll make you go talk to Cordelia." The gang doesn't believe that they're meant to understand the messages yet, but from what she did to Cordelia's picture, it makes it evident that she's wigged. And we get the wig watch because they're commenting on the word wig over Cordelia's whole May Queen event and gonna do something about it. Willa suggests maybe she's gonna try to keep Cordelia away from the coronation. Cordelia demands nothing will keep her away from the bronze in this event. Xander calls her out on her fabulous lack of priorities. Cordelia tells him if she isn't crowned tonight, then Marcy is won, and that would be bad. Noting that she's evil, way eviler than her, okay? Buffy says she's got a point there. She suggests using Cordelia as bait and how they can go on about the night as planned to draw Marcy out. Giles says that he and Willow and Xander will try to continue research to figure out maybe how to get her out of this invisible state so they aren't sitting ducks not being able to see her. Buffy and Cordelia get up to leave so she can go change and do as such to get ready. Marcy's point of view shot from behind the stacks shows that she's been listening to everything because Marcy's literally around fucking everywhere. Like, how do they not know at this point that she's literally everywhere listening? Like, whispering each other's ears.
I literally said the same thing already back in the library scene when I was like, if you've already discovered she's invisible, wouldn't you be a little bit more superstitious as to her whereabouts and the fact that she can probably be where you are right now listening to your whole conversation
because
all the time?
I mean, I could get it if they were like, let's say some stuff out loud so that way Marcy like takes the bait type shit, but they're like literally discussing their full-on plan right now.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, Marcy falls right into it. She goes and does it exactly. She's like all pissed off from it, but I'm like, they're just dumb at this point. I guess raises the whole point of the fear around this concept because you couldn't really write it down because she could be looking over your shoulder. So like, even if you turn it to like just show Buffy,
They can send each other an e-letter.
An e-letter. You need an email. Where is Jenny Calendar?
I know.
Cordelia and Buffy walk down the hall, Cordy commenting on how creepy it is that Marcy's been at the school for months, spying on them, learning their deepest secrets, spying on them in the library even, maybe even the conversation that they just had. Asking Buffy if she's invisible because she's so unpopular. Buffy replying that about sums it up. Bummer for her. It's awful to feel that lonely, Cordelia adds. So you've read something about the feeling, Buffy snarks. Cordelia looks over to her, grabs her arm to pause their walk, calling out softly, "Hey." And here we get the best quote from Cordelia so far in the series, with her saying,
You think I'm never lonely because I'm so cute and popular? I can be surrounded by people and be completely alone. It's not like any of them really know me. I don't even know if they like me half the time. People just want to be in the popular zone. Sometimes when I'm talking, everyone's so busy agreeing with me, they don't hear a word I say.
Buffy looks to her, really seeing her in this moment. Buffy asks if she's so lonely, then why does she work so hard at being popular? Cordelia replying, well, it beats being alone all by yourself. She walks off and Buffy follows after her. This whole scene right here is the most we've ever gotten from Cordelia. To just see a different layer of her, I guess, is where our metaphorical onion starts to peel off from her, because this is the first time we ever had this moment with Cordelia. We'll talk more about Cordelia later. In the library, moments after, Willow says, "Shh, do you hear that?" Taking notice to the flute music starting to play again. They follow it out into the hall. Giles says that they could talk to her, maybe reason with her, or possibly grab her. Willow agreeing that there are 3 of them, so the 3 of them go towards the sounds. A janitor janitor door. The janitor ain't there. Shit. It's Uncle Rory working at the high school. A janitor door opens to show Buffy and Cordy enter it, her commenting, "If you ever tell anyone that I changed in a mop closet," Buffy promising that this secret will die with her. Buffy looks around thinking that it seems confined and she should be safe, but to hurry. She shuts the door and Cordelia starts to change. The trio move into the basement, getting closer to the sounds. They walk into her room, walking through it, calling out the apologies. They're like, "Marcy, we're sorry we ignored you." And she's like, "Fuck you, I'm about to lock your ass in here." They move away from the door, and Xander notices that there are sounds coming from a stereo. These bitches just got Sanderson sisters from Hocus Pocus, because that's exactly how they got the witches. And whenever she's like, "Yes," and it's like French playing on the fucking thing, you know the scene. You got to. You know what I'm talking about? All right, great.
I know the scene.
I'm just making sure. I didn't know if you had
yes, I
seen
do.
Hocus Pocus or not.
What?
Okay. Xander, taking notice of the stereo, says, "Can you say gulp?" as the music switches off and we hear footsteps running out of the room and shutting the door behind them, locking them in. We catch a glimpse of a gas valve broken off and can hear sounds of hissing gas leaking into the room, and Giles starts to comment on the sound. Through the janitor door, Buffy speaks to Cordy some more, saying she understands about what she was saying earlier. Somehow it doesn't seem to matter how popular you are when, about to give a bit of her story, Cordelia cuts her off, yelling out, "You were popular? And what alternate universe was that?" Buffy eye rolls, but continues. In LA. The point is, I did sort of feel like something was missing. Cordelia cutting her off again, asking, "Is that when you became weird and got kicked out?" Buffy snarking, "Okay, can we have the heartfelt talk with a little less talk from you?" She waits, but hears nothing and calls out Cordelia's name, as we hear some banging happening in the room. We hear muffled noises and something fall. She grabs at the door that is now locked and bangs on it, hollering her name some more. The door won't budge, so she just sends a fist completely through the door, reaching in to unlock the door, but not in the nick of time, as Cordelia is hoisted into the ceiling before she can grab her. Buffy runs, hops up, and grabs a beam, quickly slinging herself into the space after her. But how in the hell Marcy ripping Cordelia up into the ceiling? Like, you know that bitch ain't that strong. It ain't like she Buffy. I was like, she must have used that rope to
I know.
tie a
I
lasso.
thought
Like,
the
she's
same
been watching videos in the library. Like, when Willow was watching them hyena videos, she was in there taking Giles videotapes on old Westerners fucking loop at the lasso or something like that. I don't fucking know, but it just seems very unlikely. But I guess they had to get her up there some way because she had to get the fucking out of the room. I don't really get it.
I like how that's what's unlikely here.
The whole show centered around about mystical fucking happenings and invisible girls and demons and monsters. But yes, that is unrealistic. It really isn't. She's a basic as a white bitch. She ain't even got no force. Wow.
And she's a ghost. Ain't no ghost
She ain't no
coming to
ghost. She's an
sweep us
invisible
up like
girl.
that.
She's still alive. She's still a full-on human.
Or yeah, you know what I mean.
Back in the basement, Giles notes that it's gas, saying that she snuffed out the pilot light as he looks around, trying to find where the gas shut-off valve is. Oh, cool. So the room is filling up with gas that will kill them. Perfect. Thanks, Marcy. Is this it? Xander asks, holding up a broken piece of metal, and Willow saying, okay, yeah, that's bad. They run over to the door and try to open it again. Xander picking up a metal bar to try to force it open, with Giles screaming at him, saying, okay, you're clinically stupid, and one spark will send this whole school up in flames or explode, starting with them. So that's a no-go. We flash back to Buffy and Cordelia, where Buffy finds Cordelia in Marcy's shitbed, passed out. Marcy kicks Buffy backwards, sending her through the ceiling and down below into a classroom, where she falls onto a table, breaking through it, and into a daze from the drop. As she tries to get up slowly, the black bag drops and a syringe floats out and over to Buffy's neck. Before she can move, it sticks her and fluid is pushed in. The room goes hazy, as does Buffy's point of view, and Buffy falls backwards, passing out. And now we over here just shooting people up now. We locking people in gas chambers. We over here smothering teachers. We got a fucking bad lesson for everybody, apparently, Marcy says. And now we can finally arrive at our closing scene, which is at the Bronze, of course, because why wouldn't our final showdown take place here? Buffy slowly waking up, strapped to a chair, Cordelia beside her telling her that she can't feel her face, Buffy asking what she means, her clarifying that it feels numb. We see Decor around them. They look forward, wondering what her plan is. And what does that mean? Cordelia asks, as they both take notice of the curtain before them, and gold glitter displays the word learn. 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 Because I had to help people learn how to spell this episode, so I had to spell out every letter. Back to Giles, struggling to manhandle the valve, cutting into his hand in the process, saying that he might have bought them some time, but they need to get out of here sooner or else. Willow is deeply worried. Her and Xander are covering their faces with their clothes, asking Giles, why is Marcy doing this? Psychotic comes to mind, but whatever. Him saying, the exile, her loneliness, she has gone mad. Well, yes, Giles, that's exactly what I just said, but not nice. Xander speaking for us all when he drops his shirt to say, you think? Love that. Back in the Bronze, Buffy wiggles to try and loosen her restraints as a cart is pushed up by Marcy in front of them. Ooh, Marcy out here coming with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, or surgical tools, actually. She states to them that she's disappointed and she hoped that she'd figured it out by now. Buffy saying then to explain it. Come on, Marcy, what are we supposed to learn? What do you want to teach us? Cordelia adds. Marcy tells her she doesn't get it. She's not the student. She's the lesson. Cordelia attempts to ask what she did to her face. Marcy says that's what this is all about, your beautiful face. It's what people remember, what makes you seen. Then unveils on the cart a tray holding numerous surgical tools, and she states that she is going to give Cordelia a face that no one will ever forget. We get a quick jump back to the basement, and the boys have gotten desperate, and they've wrapped Giles' jacket around a pole and are now ramming at the door trying to get it open. No sparks here, Giles says. He's like, let's do this the smart way, Xander. Not the stupid way. Back to Buffy, telling Marcy she can't do this. Marcy raises up a scalpel, pointing at Buffy, asking her,
What are you gonna do? Slay me?
Marcy, you know this is wrong, she tries to argue, but Marcy is having none of that and punches her across the face, telling her that she should have stayed out of her way, expressing that she thought that Buffy would have understood her vision, but she just seems to be just like them. The scalpel now waves in front of Cordy's face as she begs Marcy to not do this, crying out no. Marcy tells her that she should be grateful. People will pass her on the street after this moment, and they're going to remember her for the rest of their lives. How children will dream about her, and all of her friends that come to the coronation tonight will take the side of the May Queen to their graves. Buffy is seen wiggling her arm past the restraints, nearly able to reach the tray. Cordelia says, wait, trying to gain Buffy some time. Marcy comments that they need to get started. The local anesthetic might wear off, and how she wants Cordelia to stay conscious for this. It will be less fun if she's not. Willow at this point has now passed out. Xander is blacking out, and Giles is laying there looking weak, not far behind them. Taking too much time, chatting all day, Marcy still waves the knife in Cordy's face, saying that she thinks they should start with her smile. Maybe make it wider. Basically acting like she's Heath Ledger, the Joker in The Dark Knight Rises.
Why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face.
Cordelia once again tries to reason with her, saying she understands even if she doesn't think that she does. Marcy smarts off to her, throwing her words back in her face that Buffy had muttered in the hallway earlier. Buffy has grabbed a small blade by this point and is slowly cutting at her ropes. Marcy has escalated, screaming at Cordelia, saying that she's just a spoiled brat, and she thinks that she can charm her way out of this, slicing her across the cheek with a scalpel. Buffy breaks an arm free and kicks the tray at Marcy, knocking her back, unbinding the rest of herself and moving over to Cordy, who is mad freaking out to get her out. She's trying, but Marcy comes over and knocks Buffy down. Cordelia just crying out, thinking that this is the end for her. She's like, oh my God, I'm never getting out of here. Like, her face was so fed up in this scene too. She's like, fucking A, man, untie me. She's like, Marcy, come on, bro. Like, let's go smoke a blunt and like talk this out. Something. Our final shot in the basement. Giles slowly pats on the door, about to fade into nothing when the door opens up behind him and Angel is standing there. He looks around, picks up Giles, who moves to grab Xander as Angel picks up Willow and pulls her out. Xander gains consciousness back, looking to Angel to say, what does he want? He just saved your ass, you schmuck. Like, what the fuck you talking about? Angel grabs the codex book off of a bin next to the door, handing it to Giles, saying that he was bringing this book to him. Came in through the basement and he smelled the gas. Giles says that they have to get the valve shut off, or else the whole building could go up. Angel says he will do it, not like he needs oxygen, and then goes in to do as such. Back at the Bronze, Buffy sits up saying to the room she really felt sorry for Marcy, because she suffered, but how there's one thing that she didn't factor into all this. Marcy's a thundering loony. Buffy goes to stand up, Cordelia asking if she's okay, but Marcy kicks Buffy in the gut, making her fall back down, then kicks her back into the chair, it falling over onto her. Buffy stands back up and takes a swing into the air, Marcy calling her a moron, stating that she's invisible, kicking her once more. How are you going to fight someone you can't see? Cordelia is sobbing. Buffy stands up, telling Cordelia to shut the fuck up. She closes her eyes, and we get a 360 pan slow motion shot around Buffy as she concentrates. After a moment, she hears a creak and delivers a punch right into Marcy behind her, causing her to fall into the curtain, it draping around her body. Slayer fist hurts, huh, Marcy? She slowly stands back up as Buffy tells her,
I see you.
and grabs her, punching her directly in the face through the shroud silhouetting her body's form. Slayer fist hurts, huh, Marcy? I wrote it here twice because you know that fucking punch hurt the fuck out her little human ass face. Like,
Oh, hell yeah.
100%. The two men in black agents conveniently enter the Bronze, saying that they'll take it from here. Buffy is mad confused. They introduce themselves as agents, whoever, whatever, and it really doesn't matter, and that they're here for the girl. Buffy smarting off, where were they 10 minutes ago when she was playing surgeon? Buffy asks if they can cure her. They hope to rehabilitate her. Maybe in time she can be a useful member of society again, as others vacate with Marcy. Buffy comments, this isn't the first time that something like this has happened, is it? Of course it's not at liberty for them to discuss, thinking at best that they forget the whole incident. Okay, then why don't y'all have those little neuralizer memory erasers
Literally
that
said the same
fucking
thing.
Men in Black have? I'm glad we on the same, me and you always see an
I was
odd
like,
eye.
okay, so whip out your little black pen looking things and hold it right above everybody's face and say, hey, don't blink.
Literally though, like red flash. Pew.
Is that like a real thing though, or is that did someone just make that up for like the entertainment value?
I'm assuming as such. Buffy tells the Men in Black that they are very creepy, and they thank her for her help and leave. Cordelia looking to Buffy, asking if she can get untied now. Buffy smiles at her and begins to do so. As we cut to the next day at school, Buffy, Willow, Xander, and Giles walk towards the library, commenting on how twisted Marcy had gotten. Buffy asking how they even got out of the boiler room. Xander starts to tell her when Giles cuts him off, saying, a janitor found them. Xander's Uncle Rory. Willow agreeing that they were lucky. They start to enter the library when Cordelia comes in hot behind them, saying hi. They all turn around to face her, stunned, and Buffy says, hey back. Cordelia mentions that she didn't get to say anything with the coronation and everything, but she wanted to say thank you to all of them. They all look at one another. Xander starts to laugh and say that's funny because she looks like Cordelia, but Buffy elbows him in the chest, silencing him from ruining the moment. Cordelia adds that Buffy really helped her out yesterday, and she didn't have to, giving her another sincere thank you. Buffy tells her that it's okay. Willow starts to mention that they're going to go grab lunch if she was going to say maybe join them. She's cut off when Mitch walks up to Cordy, asking her if she's hanging out with these total losers. Cordelia looks to them and chuckles, saying, are you kidding? She was just being charitable, grabbing him to walk away, adding, she was helping them with their fashion problems. She's basically Brandon Alexander. She said, Buffy, you do not need to be wearing those purple glasses in the courtyard ever again. She said, if I ever see them things on your head and they're not acting as a headband, I will team up with my friend Courtney to take your ass down, you slayer bitch. And that's how the episode ends. No, that's not really how it ends. They walk away, her still making jokes. They disappear into the library. In a government-looking facility, Marcy is seen being transported down a hall to a classroom with other invisible students, the men telling her that she'll be happy here and fit right in. The teacher says hello to Marcy and tells the class that this is Marcy. They all say hi, and she asks for her to sit down at a desk. She does, and they get started on that day's lesson. Everyone opens up their books, and the chapter that they are going over is labeled Assassination and Infiltration. Marcy laughs and says, "Cool." We fade to black, and here endeth the episode. Yeah, talk about all the rest of this shit. Just to like commentate on the last little bits of scenes that we had, it was really sweet that Cordelia was thanking the group. Xander getting silenced by Buffy as that not the time motion was like totally gained, because she was like, you can't ruin this moment. Don't be a dick, Xander. She's like doing a lot to do this. Don't perpetuate this instance where Cordelia is actually acknowledging us. But I think that there is symbolism that this happens right in front of the library where its doors are being held open by them. I've never paid attention to this before. And then also Willow starting to invite her to have lunch with them. I think that Cordelia might have actually done it if Mitch hadn't have intervened in that moment. I think she would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll go to lunch with you. And then that would have broke the ice right there, but we can't have that yet. But we did get a full notion here that Cordelia isn't far from being a part of their world, as the door is metaphorically now open for her, and she can relate to the group in a certain way now that she's had this instant, and she is fully aware what Buffy is capable of, and the job that she has for saving people and fixing weird situations is now like finally festered to a head. And then as the very episodes end, Marcy, how is she seeing these other students in the fucking class, and how do they, like, even though she walked in the room, she could have turned around and ducked down the hallway. How did she know where to sit? Because can she see the rest of these people? I was just trying to state,
I know.
because she went right to that chair and pulled that thing out. How did she know that nobody else was sitting there?
That's
I don't
so
get
true.
it. It'd be different if the teacher had walked over there and stood by the chair and said, "This is your chair, you invisible bitch." Whatever. How does the teacher also know that students aren't cut in class? She's like, Brad, and he's out there at the vending machines or some shit. I don't know. Either way, obviously they're all here for some secret undercover government use bullshit, which is fucked up, and it's safe to say that she will not be needing Buffy's velvet trench coat and sunglasses to be a spy, because they about to hardcore train her the real way to do as such.
Yeah.
Shit was wild.
That is crazy, though. I never really questioned all of that. Those are good points. I'm like, how can they see each other? Is it like a ghost situation? And then, like, how do the teachers get scouted? Maybe they have some special ability where they can see invisible people, and that's why they became teachers at the school. I don't know.
Exactly, though. I love it. Okay. I want to point out some things that I noticed. I've mentioned briefly in the beginning that I had for the end of this, but I noticed these things a little more deeply, and the parallel between Buffy and Marcy this episode. Obviously, Buffy has friends and connections where Marcy did not, and Marcy speaks to thinking Buffy was going to relate to her, but in the end, Marcy wasn't seen and completely ignored, whereas Buffy is completely noticed and makes a mark on people because people are actually noticing her. That being said, I'm going to call this passage that we're about to talk about Take Notice to Buffy, because Buffy is seen. In this episode, this is the first time truly that we're made aware of people around Buffy taking more notice to her than we think, to her and the strange things happening around the school in Sunnydale in general. In the moment with Buffy spilling out her bag and all these students are just passing by, some glancing, we have Mitch, Cordy, and Harmony taking notice to her having all these weapons. But here she is in the middle of the school day just dropping this shit in front of everyone to see. That being said, Harmony makes her comments about how she's taken notice that she's always with the creepy librarian hanging out in the creepy library. Cordelia is so self-absorbed that she says that she doesn't care what Buffy is doing with all of these items, even though she goes on to explain, we notice that Cordelia does see Buffy. As she comes to her aid later, regardless, people do see Buffy, as we can see how Buffy feels for and relates to Marcy in some way later, like when Cordelia is picking on her and not offering her a chocolate, when she can't relate to Willow and Xander's past story and connection. It's a little additive how she's left behind and not invited also over at the dinner I was talking about as well. But in ways, this is like the ways to show that she was isolated and alone. Buffy was set up to be in the same position as Marcy because she had all those components there to say that she feels isolated, also with being the Slayer as well. Her job is to mostly do that alone, and she could have came to the school, and if she hadn't really became friends with Xander and Willow, then she would have been probably a shunned away person, because Cordelia would have continued to pick on her, and she would have had to be the Slayer. She would have been friends with Giles still, because obviously that's her watcher, but she would have just been taken so much more of an irrelevant state. So I wonder if she would have turned invisible in the end. If you think about it in that way, because she would have probably been way more isolated. But thankfully she has friends. But Getting back on track, this is the first nod to people not saying much, but they do notice what is going on around them when it comes to Buffy and her Slayer nature. Cordelia even recalling as they walk off about the time that she attacked her at the bronze with the stick. Snyder comments to her when she tries to investigate, saying that she needs to stay away from the crime scene. Quote, she's always sticking her nose in. He starts to say, but he's already in 3 episodes of being here, taken notice to Buffy. Cordelia later in the episode saying she knows Buffy is really strong, always around when weird stuff is happening, and has all those weapons. Even Marcy has noticed Buffy and makes the comment, what are you going to do, slay me? She knows she's the Slayer and has mostly likely heard several conversations in the library, as we talked about earlier too. She's heard all of them actually. And it makes the comment on thinking that Buffy related to her and would understand. In conclusion, though, this comes full circle in the end when Cordelia has fully seen and had a one-on-one moment with Buffy and been saved by her. There's a different understanding now, and Cordelia will not be the same as she was to her moving forward. But I noticed this beforehand because I'm like, this whole episode is about somebody that's invisible and you can't see them. And this girl is turned invisible because no one paid her attention. But Buffy's really lucky, is the point I'm trying to make, that people do actually pay her attention and all that other kind of shit. I thought it was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's get into the metaphor. The struggles on dealing with anxiety and paranoia was a deliberate choice by the writers. Cordelia's nasty treatment of Buffy arises the metaphor in the form of Marcy due to Buffy's resentment over Cordelia, making her feel less than. But this is our connection to Buffy and Cordelia being made apparent across the episode and played out in the storyline. The metaphor connects back to Never Kill a Boy on the First Date for Cordelia's representation of Buffy's shadow self. Buffy and her share similar interests, as Buffy used to be like Cordelia in LA. I told you that, I think, last episode or something. But they shared those similar interests, and that also took place before Buffy and her Slayerhood and all that. They both wanted to be cheerleaders. They both wanted to date Owen, and they both find Angel lustworthy. Cordelia is what Buffy would be if it weren't for her destiny as a Slayer and her willingness to accept that responsibility. Additional evidence is here when we see, like Cordelia, Buffy was May Queen in LA, and Xander comments on how she doesn't need that anymore, that she's got them. But we see on Buffy's face a part of her wants what Cordy has. This episode presents Buffy with the opportunity to bring the shadow into her awareness and accept this as a part of her metaphor for growing up. That's our biggest metaphor for the show. But they included this energy to make her stronger as a person and connect with people in a different way for her duty. Both Cordelia and her by episode end are presented with the lesson of learning, thus exposing Marcy as the mechanism by which Cordelia faults are made visible so that Buffy is forced to confront them and bring hers under control. This will play out more in the finale, but in psychology, the shadow personifies everything that the subject refused to acknowledge about themselves. And if and when the individual makes an attempt to see their shadow, they become aware of their qualities, their impulses within themselves, such as egotism, mental laziness, sloppiness, unreal fantasies, all that type of stuff. Concluding, not only does the episode present mental illness as a metaphor, but Buffy working with her shadow to provide the overall theme of the show: acceptance of herself, her role in the world, and integrating all parts of herself, both light and dark, conscious and unconscious, that will make her the best Slayer that she can be. Like, I read that in Mark Field's book. Buffy having to work with her shadow is like the hidden metaphor for us being able to connect with ourselves on all the deepest parts. I feel like we would resonate with it in that way because we do shadow work and stuff like that. And we're always trying to be the best of ourselves. And I know that we both read philosophies and psychology, how you can bring into your awareness other stuff when you actually work deeper with it and bring stuff from your subconscious up to the conscious to be physically worked with. Most people aren't seeing that watching the show because the metaphors are invisible people or monsters or whatever, especially for the high school years. But this is setting up the first chapter of metaphor in the show.
I got you. Okay, that makes sense. I kind of like the deeper dive into, like you said, their introspection and all of the meaning that the show holds in general, but especially in this particular episode, because I feel like what Cordy says applies a lot. Like, it doesn't matter if you're like a really popular person in school or you're not a popular person or you're one of those people that kind of mingles with everyone. I feel like we all have a very universal feeling of being dismissed or being forgotten or being unseen or unheard, or just not feeling completely validated in ourselves or feeling like the most confident version of ourselves. And a lot of times that has more to do with how we experience outside source, especially if it's like the dynamic we're having with other people, especially if it's in school. Because I think you notice that as you're growing up, especially when you leave school and you graduate high school, you do really realize that it's true what your parents say. These people's opinions don't matter. You're generally not going to be surrounding yourself with the same people that you went to high school with. And like, we shape our whole entire lives around it while we're in that atmosphere, it becomes everything to us. And it's not until like way later, until adulthood, where we realize all the parts of ourselves that we silenced are really parts of ourselves that as adults make us unique and great and that we should love, and we don't ever like really hone in on that while we're in these like really fragile teenage years because of bullies or someone else, laughed at us or dismissed us or whatever. So I really appreciate just having this like deeper dive on the metaphor of it all.
Nice. All right,
Yeah.
great. Okay, now to touch base on the lesson in the class that I talked about we had from earlier. I found this passage on LiveJournal by this person named būt_the_grime, and I'm going to read their stance on how this connects to Marcy and the story we talked about earlier, the play. And I think it perfectly describes the theme this episode brings in and its meta use of Shakespeare to relate in this episode. So I'm just going to read out what this person says. In the scene where the class is having a discussion about the difference between hero and protagonist, and the show as a whole, Buffy is both. But one can say that this episode is more about Marcy, who can be seen as the villain/antagonist, but also as the protagonist in this particular story, but not the hero. In a way that Shylock was the villain and antagonist in The Merchant of Venice, but has been treated as the protagonist in the many contemporary productions. While discussing The Merchant of Venice, we're introducing the theme of the episode, an angry, vengeful outcast, and it's drawing a parallel between Shylock and Marcy. Willow is unsurprisingly the one to defend him, probably not so much because she's Jewish, but because she's also unappreciated, and also we later see has a strong vindictive streak. Cordelia's unsympathetic view of Shylock, while presented as one of Cordy's wacky interpretations of classics, is in fact probably closer to the original idea of the play, and she makes a good point except for the irony that she's the one talking about someone being self-centered. But Marcy actually proves her right in the end, and as a result of what happened to her, she has become self-absorbed and can't see that everyone else has their problems and feels lonely as well. Nowadays, we're so used to that "if they prick us, do we bleed" speech being used as an example of the downtrodden and oppressed groups of people speaking up and demanding to be heard that we forgot that Shylock's speech is not about equality but about vengeance. He is saying that he has a desire and a right to vengeance, just like the Christians do. Of course, he tries to represent it as justice, but it's actually revenge. And just like Shylock, Marcy is sympathetic as a villain, but she's still the villain. No matter how much we can't help but feel sorry and sympathize for what has happened to her, the fact that she is cruelly and intentionally trying to hurt people in a way that's very disproportionate to the cause. Antonio, like the other Christians, treated Shylock with contempt, so Shylock wants to have him killed in a gruesome way. Cordelia, like the other students and even teachers, ignored Marcy, so she wants to horribly disfigure her, not to mention trying to kill innocent people as collateral damage. Buffy in the end realizes that this is where Marcy has crossed the line. Yes, you suffered, but you're still not justified in what you're doing, and you need to be stopped. And that's basically what the Merchant of Venice is about too.
The level of revenge is so much further than being dismissive in return. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like my idea of revenge is not to outdo what you've done to me. I want you to feel the same way that you made me feel. I'm not going to slice your face open if you ignored me 3 times.
Yeah.
Like, that
That's
seems a little bit irrational.
that's fair.
You know what I mean? I'm like, better yet, you could have found any given thing to do. First off, not made yourself invisible, but since you have the superpower, couldn't you have just like embarrassed her in front of people somehow? Or like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Made her feel invisible, made her feel vulnerable to the masses, whatever. Like, I don't know, you done took it too far. And like you just read, you're using innocent bystanders as collateral damage on your path to war for nothing.
Quite lich. Marcy's just like, I think that's the part of the paranoia that like creeped up in her head and gave her like the biggest dose of her mental illness, was the fact that she felt so isolated that it permeated her just in the wrongest of ways. And I'm sure, honestly, at the same time with the invisibility thing happening, the Hellmouth helped amplify that energy that she's
For
feeling
sure.
and make her want to do more of a villainous streaked thing because of the evil energy that it puts out. I'm thinking about it for the first time now that could have also been part of the trigger there, but honestly, sometimes people are just fucking crazy.
Yeah. Some people are just weak-minded like that, I suppose. Or they just, are like born with that switch that's like a little bit easier to flip than others.
They over there flipping that shit on and off. What the fuck are you talking about? Light dark, light dark, light dark. Ugh, fuck, man. Out of mind, out of sight altogether, though, was a pleasant breath of non-Cordelia Val air. Even though we still see some of her trademark energy, we see some softer sides and moments of her exposed in the episode, and it makes for a great one. I think the villain is something that we have not seen before either. It's a cool element for the show or any film to use, because it's absolutely terrifying not being able to see your attacker, and puts you in a whole other realm of danger and what you would do to defend yourself. Or in Buffy's case, it is a great episode to show reflection and how and why people change, and it brings us awareness on our actions and how they play out in those around us more than anything, in my opinion. Also, how we can affect other people. I'm glad we finally caught up with Angel too, to see him now working behind the scenes with Giles a little bit, and this will obviously pose as a grand issue for our season finale next episode. I'm excited to see what this brings though for Cordelia, as I've mentioned 4 times now, that this impacts her view on the gang and invites her into a world that's, you know, showing what's really happening and who Buffy is. So I think that'll be kind of fun. That'll be a fun sleigh rep prediction. What do you think Cordelia's gonna do? Sorry.
I will say something I thought of an interesting point is that I feel like Cordy should turn into a vampire so she loses her reflection and then she can't look in the mirror anymore.
Oh shit. That probably would have been her nightmare in the nightmare episode if she had already knew about vampires.
Seriously.
Damn. Do you have any other closing thoughts to say from your notes or anything like that to add in?
I'm surprised. I'm pretty sure that I caught a ring watch. I'm sure Buffy was wearing one of her little bubble rings that you always talk about, and I was like waiting for the fashion police to come out and be like, and ring watch, but you didn't, so I'm gonna do it because I'm pretty sure there's a scene where Buffy's wearing the ring and you didn't catch it.
I don't even know about it right now. I wonder if it was when she was outside wearing the ugly sunglasses you didn't like.
Is that then? Down the hall. She's in the school and she's walking down the hall.
It was probably the part where she was dressed in that nude outfit and I was too busy paying attention to all the nudes and stuff.
Yes, probably, because I think I just saw her hand like quick go up to like a strap or something. I don't know if she had something on or she was carrying something, but I saw her hand for a split second. I saw that ring there. I was like, oh shit, here we go, ring watch.
Damn, I missed the bubble ring watch. I'm gonna have to go back and look. The next time I view this episode 3 years from now, I'll see it. I'm gonna send you a picture and be like, I finally saw it, mate.
They're like, ring watch from 3 years ago.
Okay. I do have 4 little fun facts from this episode. Initially, the alternating title for this was Invisible Girl, and it actually aired as such. And then once the DVD came out, they went with their second alternated title, which was obviously the one we have today, Out of Mind, Out of Sight. This episode's concept was taken from the 1933 film and its sequels, The Invisible Man, which we said in the beginning, but now I remember the year, 1933. It came out a really long time ago.
Jeez, that was a long time ago.
That would be black and white.
Probably.
Cordelia took Buffy to the library and welcome to the Hellmouth, but this is the first time we ever see her actually step foot in the library looking for Buffy. She knew that Buffy would be there, so she went to the fucking library, which I thought was really cool.
No, that's cool.
Due to its unique premise and emotional depth, it's considered one of the most memorable and impactful episodes of the series for fans, even though I read some reviews that label it as one of the weaker episodes like I, Robot, You, Jane and stuff. That's not my opinion. Joss Whedon credits the inspo of this episode to his own experience in high school. Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
He showed everybody then, didn't he?
He really did. Yeah, he's a great writer. He's brilliant. But at the same time, he's done some stuff now that's just like, Saturn fucking exposed him. We'll talk about it as we get into episode by episode when that starts to unfold. And I know these stories, but he was just very unfair and cruel sometimes. So it puts a bad taste in your mouth.
And then if that was his real experience in high school and he relates it to this episode, you would think that he would be a little bit more like humane toward people, especially those that he himself is making money off of.
Be hating on his ass. Anyways. All right, cool. Now that we can close up and get done, we can go on to our final slays.
Yes. Final slays.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's the whisper yeah for me. Okay, so I have 4 quotes for my episode because I was in true Brandon and Courtney fashion just running the fuck out. My first one was Principal Snyder. He made the comment in the hallway, there are no dead students here this week. because thankfully there was not. My second one is speak for everyone here when I say, huh? Buffy in the library, whenever she was talking to them, and Giles is talking about, he's saying physics in a different way. This is about me, Cordelia. For once, she's right. Like, so obviously, the episode is all about me. So it's funny they slipped that in there. And then my final quote was whenever Giles is like, I don't recall you ever being in the library before. And she's like, no, I have a life. Of course, or two of my quotes had to come from Cordelia because it was a Cordelia-centric episode.
My quote this week was when Angel suddenly appeared in the library next to Giles, and the first thing he says to Giles is, "Don't worry, I'm not here to eat."
Giles was like, I wasn't even thinking about that, but okay, thanks. Angel got the paranoia. He's like, I know, Buffy told
I'm
you.
like, is that the like normal disclaimer you have to give around regular people if you're a vampire? Like, don't worry, I'm not hungry right now.
Absolutely. Edward Cullen did the whole Twilight series, so who's your shining slayer?
Angel.
Me too.
Okay, but also my weekly wigs is attached to this because my shining slayer is Angel, but it gave me the utter and utmost complete weekly wigs that no one thanked him for saving them.
Especially not Xander.
Especially no one. And then Giles wanted to lie about it.
He got
He
no
gets
credit.
no credit. Now Angel's invisible.
Exactly. Damn. All right, well, we got your weekly wigs wrapped up into that. Well, Angel was mine too, but it was for saving Willow, Giles, and I guess Xander.
Yeah.
My weekly wigs was Marcy 100%, mostly because what she was about to do to Cordelia's face. I was getting whiplash, feeling bad for her initially, but after all of this, like, they could have just all been avoided as we were talking about. But after she was just mad crazy, all the things she was deeming okay to be doing, it was just a bit much. We can't just be killing people though just because they ignored you. Some people take things entirely too far. Not to mention locking the trio in the basement to die of gas inhalation. Like, Giles ain't do shit to you at all, nor did Buffy, besides try to reason then stop you. So, like, you just mad, Marcy. You deserve to be the weekly wigs.
Totally.
Okay, so for Slayerette predictions, I actually have some questions for you. It's just two. Do you think Cordelia's coming around to the gang after this interaction?
For sure. For sure I do. I already was kind of like, when is she gonna enter fully? Is she gonna start slaying with everyone? Is she gonna hang out in the library more often? Is she gonna stop caring about other people, thinking that she's hanging out with losers? Like, lots of questions there, but I definitely think it's just like a foot in or a shoe in type of situation to like a greater scheme down the road.
All right, great. I guess we'll see. And now for perhaps the most important Slayerette prediction this season. So we know the finale is next week. But we're recording it in 2 days as we watch it together. What do you think is going to happen in the season finale?
I try to think about this a little bit, but I honestly just don't know because the season has been so all over the place with all the different themes and characters and situations that have been introduced. But I do feel a very heavy premise of Angel coming up and the Master. I don't know what he's going to do. Obviously something, as it's the finale, and something has to like come to its head involving him because he's just been down there, you know, being blood repellent and spewing and stewing over whatever plan he has to execute Buffy, which probably isn't going to be successful just like all the other times. So I guess that's a prediction, is that whatever the Master's trying to do, aka the Harvest, is going to fail.
All right, great. The Master's stuck down there forever.
Basically, let's hope.
All right, great. Well, I guess we'll see. Oh my god, I'm so excited to get there and I get to see your reaction. Well, that's fun. We've arrived at the close of Out of Mind, Out of Sight. Thanks as always to everyone who has looked, listened, and learned along with us for this one. We appreciate you coming back to be with us and talk about loony Marcy and self-centered-ish Cordelia. Write in and let us know how you feel about this one. Do you agree with Marcy and think good old revenge is the way? And do you love the deeper moments with Cordy that we get? Also, who would you award Shining Slayer to and what gave you guys the weekly wigs? We will, of course, be back next week. Big drum roll, as we just talked for 12 minutes about the season 1 finale. It's the season 1 finale. Courtney and I have such a special treat in store for you all as well, and this will without a doubt be our most memorable episode thus far as we venture into Buffy's final journeys with acceptance, her long-awaited confrontation with the Master, and we find out just what being a Slayer means in our season 1 conclusion, Prophecy Girl. We can not wait, and we will see you guys then.
Be more
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Buffy on Revamped. Remember to join us next week for a new episode release as we continue our journey through Sunnydale. We also would like to hear from you, so share your thoughts. Discuss with us your perspectives on this or previous week's episodes by following us on Instagram and sending us a DM at revamped_rewatch podcast.
Or by emailing us at revampedrewatchpod@gmail.com. Additionally, we will be choosing one of your messages to shout out in an upcoming episode release. And don't forget, if you're looking for a friend and some unsolicited advice for the times when life feels out of orbit, go follow Life in Retrograde Podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Until next time, the Earth is definitely doomed. This podcast is dedicated to the Buffyverse, to its fans, and my sister, Tiffany Dawn Pearson.